Alright, let's get started. So in this video, we're gonna cover 5 tips that will allow you to create better cutscenes. So, let's get started. Alright, so tip number 1. Inside your maps, the most common way that I see inside RPG Maker's cutscenes happening is like this. Players are walking towards a destination and suddenly, boom, text appears. Alright, let's stop right now and give you my number 1 tip. And you can thank me later because that's gonna change your life. If you do cutscenes like this, you are doing it wrong. What you should do is create a new map for your cutscene. This will allow you to create events which represent each one of your characters that you will be able to manually move and manipulate as you wish without having to worry of anything with the characters following and creating other events on the map which could interfere with the gameplay and whatnot. And so, create the exact same map of your cutscene, and at the top left corner have the cutscene happening inside an auto run. Also make sure that while you're transferring maps, the character, the player, becomes invisible. To do so, what you want to do is basically, let me flush this all over here. So, gonna first fade out the screen to fade to black, then we're gonna set a movement route on the player, gonna make it transparent and through so the collision won't matter wherever you teleport it on the new map. And then we're gonna transfer the player on the map of the cutscene wherever you want the camera to be centered. So let's say that I want the camera to be centered over here, which is where most of the interaction of the cutscene will happen. Just gonna select this, and that's it. Now whenever the character is gonna interfere with this event, it's gonna get teleported on a new map, and then the cutscene will begin. There we go. And now for tip number 2, which is happening right now. As you can see on the screen, we're having a gigantic wall of text and info dump happening at once inside the cutscene with nothing else whatsoever happening. You need to avoid that as much as possible. Now I understand it's important for your players to be given information on the lore of your world that will become useful for them to understand the plot and also the intrigue of the game, but you cannot do it in a single massive info dump. Players will just skip that because it becomes boring and unengaging for them. They didn't purchase your game to read a book, always remember that. And so whenever you're making information dump, keep it as clear, concise, and short as it needs to be, always. In exchange, you can make multiple cutscenes so that you can split the information and give it at appropriate times during the game, but never do it in a single massive info dump because first, that will bore your players, and second, they're most likely not to remember all the information because too much is happening at once. And so, if we change the character's map destination to tip number 2, where I've solved that, I'm keeping the information short and concise within a single block of text, and that is more than enough. Alright, moving on to the third tip of the day, we have manipulate the text so that it will benefit you. By that I mean that inside RPG Maker you can implement text, yes, but there's also a whole bunch of controls that you can use. If you drop your mouse right over here for a couple seconds, they will all show up and it will explain exactly what you can use to modify the text and behave the exact way you want it to. As you can see over here, you can increase the text size, you can reduce the text size, you can implement color, you can display all the text at once, you can prevent the input from happening and simply move on to the next text or the next event happening inside your contents without the player requiring to press a button. You can have the text wait a couple seconds before moving on and so forth. Now there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with this, and this can really benefit a couple of things. First, you can highlight important keywords like heroes names or important places of your lore or the world, so that the characters will pay attention to what has been written, and they will pay mostly attention to those specific keywords, and so that's easier for the player to remember. Or you can also make this text appear bigger. For instance, over here, when, for instance, a character is screaming. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do by manipulating text, and by doing this right, it can really enhance the quality of a cutscene. Now, something that we're realizing by looking at this cutscene over here is that something is happening, but we're not exactly sure of what the hell is going on. And that brings us to our fourth tip, and probably the most important one for any single cutscene, which is make sure to always provide movement and animation as much as possible inside your cutscenes. It may seem like an duh, but to be fair with you, a lot of people does not do it enough. And with RPG Maker, since animations and movement is such limited because it's only pixel on the screen, you need to overdo it as much as possible. Now the good thing is, RPG Maker developers are aware of their own weaknesses, and they grant us a lot of powerful and cool tools in order to overdo cutscenes so that it will become interesting. One of the first tool that is available to us is the show balloon icons, which will just create a couple of cool icons over specific events. Now that can be like really interesting to provide feedback of emotions of characters specifically, like are they surprised, confused, angry, or having a cool idea, and there's a lot of stuff that you can do. Now there's also the possibility to set the movement route of your characters and move them a lot on the scene. You have a lot of commons possible that allows you to do pretty much anything that you wish for. And so you should over abuse this part. Like make them move, bring them to life. They don't breathe or anything on your screen. We can't see them do that. And so you need to frequently moving them as much as possible so that we feel like an interaction is happening, whatever that might be. Another cool tool is the show animation, because you can create animations inside the database, but you can also have them happening inside your cutscenes. So whatever is cool special effect that, for instance, character is testing a spell or hitting another character, a trap happens, an ambush or whatever, you can create animations to bring the drama even more forward. Now there's a couple more that are available to us, like the shared screen, which allows literally the screen to shake. So if there's an earthquake, an explosion, or anything, you can use that. You can also flash the screen with a particular color for a couple of seconds or whatever. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do. And so don't be afraid to overdo it. Alright, now for the last and final tip, but most definitely the most important of the day, that is, have a great control over the music during any cutscenes. Now music is most likely one of the auditive tools the most powerful in the world to bring out emotions. If you do it right, you can create amazing cutscenes for your players. Doesn't matter if it's made on RPG Maker. There's a lot of people over the last years that pulled off amazing and spectacular video games made on RPG Maker only because they were able to do great cutscenes, and the way they did that is they had a total mastery on how to implement background music, background sound, but also sound effects inside their cutscenes. The first name that comes to mind is a game that you probably already are aware of, To the Moon, which the BGM at the correct time inside the correct cutscene during the plot made 99% of people that played it literally cried, and that was an RPG Maker game. And so I cannot stress this part enough. That is the last and probably the most important part. Pick your sounds, your music, take the time to play it accordingly with what is happening inside the scene, and don't be afraid to stop them and or change the music in order to bring out different emotions based on what is happening during the cutscene. Alright, so that's it for today's on 5 tips in order to create better cutscenes. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave some comments, whatever, and I'll see you later for a new video. Bye! Goodbye.